networks and compassionate policing, and whereas we understand the strong community relationships are essential for law enforcement to do their jobs effectively. We have held community meetings, supported initiatives bringing law enforcement, academia, youth, civil rights, and community leaders to the table for problem solving while building community trust. Law enforcement officials care deeply about their communities, and together with our partners in law enforcement, we must work to build up our neighborhoods, prevent crime before it happens, and provide opportunity for all people to be healthy and engaged. And
whereas it takes a special kind of courage to be a peace officer, we hold up those who wear the badge honorably as heroes. Though they too often spend their days witnessing people in crisis, and their extraordinary examples, we see Apex at its best. And whereas, on this day and throughout this week, let us celebrate those who nobly serve each day and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice to move our community, nation, and world towards peace and safety. And
whereas it is important for all citizens to know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of police officers, I further call upon all citizens to observe May 15, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, to honor our law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice to their community or have been disabled in the performance of their duties. Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of the town of Apex, North Carolina, call upon our citizens to observe the week of May 9 through May 15, 2021 as National Police Week, recognizing all law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated, compassionate service to their communities. Signed this 11th day of May 2021. Again, we can't thank you enough for what you do. And I have to think about spouses as well. Also our civilians that work in the police department, because they contribute to the success of the organization as well. So I look out in the room and I know many of you I've served with, Lieutenant Parody, Sergeant Prince, even Officer Chris Short. I still believe in you, sir. You're still my man. Many of you, you do an amazing job. So thank you for the efforts you put in every single day. And we love you and keep doing an amazing job. So with that, we give you a round of applause. Ashley Standard. All right. Thank you. All right, y'all welcome to stay. All right, we'll move now to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. And I do have one item that I would like to pull tonight and move to new business 3, and that is consent 12, and that is a motion to approve an ordinance and amendment changing park hours at Claremont Park to close at 8 p.m. year-round. So I'll entertain a motion with that change to accept it.
Motion to approve with the change.
All right.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. That passes unanimously. We now move to setting of the regular meeting agenda. And we do have one change. I think legal wants to make a change on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to ask that closed session item number 2 be pulled. We'll discuss that issue at the next meeting.
Okay, closed session item pulled. And of course, the change with new business 3. And that's all I have. Any other changes for the agenda? All right, with that, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve with the adding of the new business item 3 and the removal of closed session item 2.
second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, passes unanimously. We're moving now to public forum, and this is opportunity for the community to speak and share concerns, suggestions, or have any things they want to present to improve our community. We have no one signed up tonight, so that's easy. We'll close public forum, and we'll move now to public hearing. So with that, we have public hearing number 1, and this is presented tonight by Shannon Cox. And public hearing and possible motion regarding amendments to the thoroughfare and Collector Street map in the vicinity of Jesse Drive.
Good evening, everyone. To orient you and the audience to the area that we're discussing tonight. This is 1010 Road, shown here on the slide. There's a traffic signal here at Smith Road that branches down between Smith and Stevenson. And then this is Penny Road at the top of the screen. Jesse Drive is located here. It's currently a residential street, but it is shown as a future 4-lane median divided thoroughfare on our thoroughfare and collector street plan map. It's also shown to extend from 1010 all the way to 55 and even further to Viridia Parkway eventually. We are in the process of final design for phase 1 of Jesse Drive. And when Town Council deliberated about the final design, we heard substantial comment and discussion about access for Sweet Gum Drive, which is right here. As part of that discussion, Council asked that staff take a look at this area and see if there's a possibility of providing future connectivity so that there could be another point of ingress and egress from Sweet Gum Drive in the future. So that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So we are recommending, I'm sorry, I keep losing the mouse over here. We are recommending that we add a future local connector, so that's a residential street. Here on Sweet Gum Drive, this is the parcel owned by Aqua North Carolina. So it's most likely that this future roadway would be built with redevelopment when water is extended to this area. This is also south of the stream and avoids Carolina Pipeline here. That roadway would extend west to a future minor collector street. And we're also recommending a shift in that location from where these X's are shown further east. That would avoid impacting these existing residential dwelling units and shift the roadway to an undeveloped property, making it more likely that this roadway may be built sometime in the future with possible redevelopment. This alignment also avoids Carolina Pipeline. I do want to note that it is not where we're planning the U-turn bulb for Sweet Gum. That's actually closer to Sweet Gum Drive intentionally to try to not have them go too far out of their way. In looking at connectivity in this area, we are also recommending adding this future minor collector street, which would go from the north-south minor collector, stay north of the stream, south of the existing residences, and connect back up to Jesse Drive on this undeveloped property, where it would continue north and eventually connect to this major collector street already shown on our plan map. We're finally recommending a minor shift in that future major collector street to get it a little further away from Colonial Pipeline, and then allow for an intersection at the edge of the property currently occupied by Knights Play Golf Center. On our future land use map, this is shown as a park, public or private, and so we'd like to have the intersection on the edge of that property. These changes were reviewed by staff in Public Works and Transportation, Police, Fire, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources. There were no concerns. We did discuss the location of the U-turn. And there's general support for planning for future connectivity in this area. Planning staff do recommend these changes. They were also unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Board at their meeting last night. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
I do have a question about, so the local connector there to Sweet Gum Drive, you're anticipating that with further development if they have water and they no longer need aqua, is that correct?
That's typically when a street of this type would be built. It's part of redevelopment typically. We don't have any local connectors currently in our CIP to be built, but So that's what I would expect.
Any other questions?
I mean, I think, we had a lot of conversation about this, and we visited neighbors, and I think the biggest concern was trying to, take their interest in mind as much as possible. It sounds like you all have done that. This does not impact any residential homes there on Sweet Gum, is that correct? I just want to verify.
That's correct. No homes. The alignment of that future local connector slightly crosses a parcel that has a home on it but does not impact a home. Again, it's possible that this connection would be built while these homes are still here. It's also possible that the entire area may redevelop when that's built. But we did try to plan an alignment that could be built without impacting existing homes.
I appreciate y'all taking another look at this, because that, the concern of being able to get to Jesse Drive without having to go out and turn back around in the middle was significant, so that people could go west as well. So I appreciate y'all taking another look.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and open up public hearing for comments. No sign up. Okay, so we'll close public hearing and move back to council for discussion, lead to a possible motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion.
Second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, passed unanimously. We move now to new business number 1. It's Colleen Moraes.
Evening.
Good evening.
All right, so we have 4 special events that we're looking at today. One has been talked about a lot. It's the first one. It's for Peak Promenade. It's with Apex High School and Apex Friendship High School. It's actually in 2 weeks from this Friday. We've got essentially this is to take place of their regular prom, since they can't gather due to COVID restrictions. We're sort of working with them, and I've been working with the principals and the prom staff and different committees to kind of do something fun and entertaining while still pivoting in this COVID world of socially distancing, which obviously prom is not a socially distanced event. So in effort to do that, we're complying with all the regulations to do this event. We're going to be hosting this event downtown in front of the depot. They're going to take over the plaza and the parking area from Friday through the weekend to host this wonderful event. These are seniors who clearly last year didn't get to have a junior prom, and this year are also not getting to have their senior prom, which is we all remember, and I know I finally remember that milestone event of, getting dressed up and getting a limo and doing all that fun stuff. And so it's unfortunate that these kids have had to go through this. So this is kind of just a little way for us as a community to sort of give back and kind of say we support them, we congratulate them on this wonderful milestone that they're making as they go on to that next adventure of college or work. So that's the first event. And as I said, that's May 20th through the 23rd. I say the 20th through the 23rd because the tent's actually going to get set up on a Thursday, and then the event will start take place on Friday and Saturday evenings. And then our next event that we have on our calendar here is the Spring Car Show for the American Legion. That is scheduled for Saturday, June 5th. This is similar to the one that we did last year. It's kind of more of a, again, socially distanced, so it's more like coffee and cars. People will pull in, kind of mill around, and then pull back out. This is the one that would be on the Town Hall campus property and parking lot. And again, that's on a Saturday. It's from 8:30 to 12. And then the next one is in recognition of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So Patriots Day has become obviously a day to remember all the things that happen on that day. As a former New Yorker, obviously this one sits and hits home for me. But this is also one that we're doing in partnership. Obviously, this is 9/11 is also the same day as the already approved Peak Fest and Music Fest. And this event would marry up with that. And both our Festival Commission folks and again, this is through the American Legion, Mike Sayers, who's the commander for them. We've been talking, and so we figured out ways to kind of incorporate both of these events to kind of have some synergies there. And again, their event would start at like 8:30 and be done basically by the time that Peak Fest really sort of kind of comes into full action. And then the final event is also the American Legion. This is their fall car show. They've renamed it Oktoberfest. They have a cornhole competition, a chili cook-off, some other food vendors. But this one, unlike before, where they sort of took over, obviously, the space where now we have a senior center, they kind of took over the whole community space. They've decided to ask us to move it to the Saunders Templeton lot in downtown. And so that would close that lot, and they would kind of house everything within that space. So those are the 4 events that we're presenting today. So
What's the date of the fall car show?
that is October 29th through the 31st. And that's mostly because they need to set up in advance and then be here, and then do the chili cook-off and then close out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? I just want to thank you for taking care of Apex High School and Apex Friendship. I know that was short notice. I'm glad we were able to do something for them.
It's been a lot of fun, actually. It's been a lot of fun, and I know they're extremely appreciative. I can't even tell you since, and how even the parents, like, it was funny, I've been talking to the different principals, Principal White and Principal Hoffman, and it's funny the number of phone calls I've received from parents. I mean, I'm sure some of you have even received phone calls from parents, but they are so excited to have some sort of recognition. I don't know if anybody's been downtown, but the banner for congratulating that the town took care of, we have a new banner up across the street, and it also recognizes dailies as well. And even that week, these are specific to their prom event, but during that whole week, we're doing a senior spirit week that week with specials. So we reached out to the small business community in Apex, and we got a bunch of specials put together for that week that'll run from the 17th through the 23rd that encourage, so it's also another way that the small business community is showing how they're giving back to these families and students who've supported them through this pandemic. So it's a nice way to do it. And I know Robert was here earlier with Ruckus. They put together a digital platform. He does, so we have even a digital version of all of our coupons and QR codes. Is kind of cool.
Excellent.
So utilizing new technology too. It's kind of fun.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know you have a lot to get to, so I'll stop unless you have other questions.
Hearing none. All right. Is there,
Motion approved.
all right, motion approved, Mahaffey.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
All right, new business 2. Diane Ken. And this is possible motion to approve tree planting grant program.
All right, good evening. So this got bumped from the last meeting, and Mark Seibert was here to do the Arbor Day proclamation. He was going to be here for this as well because he was critical in getting the tree planting grant program together. He worked with Tree Cap, your citizen board, on the provisions of this grant program. So I just wanted to give him credit for that. So basically, the tree planting grant program is designed to provide incentive funds to tenants and property owners to install trees on residential private properties within Apex's corporate limits. The grant would provide up to 100% of the cost of the tree purchase and installation up to a maximum of $750 per property. The idea behind this grant program was to be similar to facade grants and historical marker grant program where we would make sure that the trees are selected for the correct location, the correct tree type for that location, and to ensure that it is installed professionally so that we can ensure that the trees that are planted will remain in place. And so the one difference is the grant can provide up to 100% of the cost of the tree purchase and installation. We felt like given the lower cost versus the other grant programs, we didn't need to necessarily do a matching grant. The goal is to have as many trees planted as possible and to have the cost to go toward our Tree City USA requirements, because we do have a certain amount of money we have to spend each year for that requirement. All right, the grant applications, the proposal is have them accepted September 1st, and then after grant approval, the trees can be installed anytime between October 1st and February 28th to ensure the best planting season for trees. The applications must be approved before work begins, and planning staff would need to be granted authority to administer this process by town council. That's why we're here today. And then town council would allocate the funding just like you do for all the grant programs through the annual budget. So the eligibility criteria for the applicants would be reviewed for completeness, appropriateness of the planting location, appropriateness of the species of tree proposed for the location. And then the tree planting locations would need to be in Apex's corporate limits and comply with state and local regulation, including staying out of easements and gaining appropriate encroachment agreements from the town if it is going to be in a right-of-way. And so these are just some of the requirements from the application. And then the abbreviated native tree list, this comes out of the design and development manual that Shelley Mayo had presented to you recently. And so we have some of the best native trees that would be eligible. Other trees, if folks wanted them, we could look at the full list to see if they would be appropriate, but I just wanted to show the abbreviated list, and this is included with the application so that folks could look to see what types of trees would be suitable. All right, so that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. Hopefully you won't have any specific tree questions because I am not the arborist.
Ms. Gann, who would help with the planting?
So the way that it's set up is that just like a facade grant, they would hire a landscape professional and they would provide us an itemized information about everything about where the tree would go, what type, how it'll be installed, what the watering schedule is, all of that. And we would review that, and if it met the criteria, then they would be able to hire the contractor to put in the tree, and then once it's done, they would show that they paid and they would get reimbursed.
So it would be up to the applicant to hire?
To hire someone, yes, yes. But, I mean, we certainly have folks that we use. We can't recommend anyone, but we can say, well, these are ones that we have contracts with, because that's public record. So they could potentially choose some of our local businesses.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. The first one is, was this program, I know you said it was kind of based on the facade grant, or inspired maybe, but was the topic of trees, was that based on any kind of municipalities nearby, similar type programs?
Well, it's from, you all had mentioned a few times that you're several of you very interested in tree planting programs, and in fact, I think Cary's program was brought up at one time. We did talk with the folks in Cary, to Katie Rose Levin, who's their urban forestry manager, and Marie Cephalo, who's the water resource outreach supervisor, and Cary did a tree giveaway, but it was not associated with their Arbor Day requirements. It was done this year for their 150th sesquicentennial, and so they did a very different program. It was basically a tree giveaway. They chose 3-gallon container trees because they fit in any size car. They didn't want to have a problem with someone showing up in a small car and not being able to take it home. They had a program where folks could sign up. They would watch a video to see how they could plant the tree themselves. And then they would be on the list for one of 2 pickup days. And were out at a park or something, and they would tell people, this is your day to come pick up your tree. They would come pick up the tree, and then they're on their own after that. And so it was not set up as a grant program, it was set up as a giveaway.
Okay, I guess a follow-up on those lines is reading through this, it seems like this is going to have an awful high cost per tree, and if you add staff time to it, it seems like a lot of overhead compared to something like a tree giveaway. And did you guys think about a much lower, if the goal is maybe the maximum trees for the dollars we're spending here, did you guys think about kind of a giveaway that's less controlled by the town versus one that's got this review and staff involvement?
So the main goal is that every tree planted is still there 20, 40, 100 years from now. These trees that are parts of giveaway, this is how the town used to do it. When I first got here, there was an appearance commission. They used to give away trees every Arbor Day. I can tell you, I took home a lot of the extra trees one year because they weren't all given away, and I planted them, and there's 1 left. So maybe out of 10, 1 is still there. And so we really wanted more bang for our buck. It is more expensive, for sure, certainly. But we want every tree that's planted to be able to be there for the long term. We also wanted to make sure that it would qualify for the Arbor Day requirements, for the Tree City requirements. Giving away the trees, it's really just the cost of each individual tree, and that's really it. And so whether people plant them or not, I don't know that we could even count those trees as being town trees planted, because we've just given them away. We have no idea where those trees are going to be planted.
Okay. I have a third question, sorry. The third one is, was there any consideration, so if it is a high cost per tree, was there any consideration to think about highest impact trees? And what I'm actually thinking about is like street trees. And I know trying to put street trees where there's the easement issues, I know there's the issues that. Is it possible to do a program like that where we could put that money toward just street trees and try to figure out where those can, or is there not enough place in Apex where they can go without being planned beforehand?
We cannot plant trees in the streetscapes because of utility conflicts. It has been studied several times over the years. We've looked at it recently. If you drive down a road, you're like, oh, there could be trees there. We take a look at it every time there's utilities in it.
On both sides of the road normally?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's gotten to the point where when we do the tree planting, it's been in parks because that's the only place that there have been available areas to plant trees. And as you know, we're doing 1 additional each year. In another 10 years, I'm not sure where we will be planting the trees because it has to be on public property. And thankfully, public property generally already has a lot of trees on it. And so there's not as much opportunity. So the streetscape issue really is one of whether or not we want to completely change how we do road sections. And I know Marty would want to talk about it. I don't think you see. I was here. He wrote me a really nice email about it. I didn't know street trees were going to come up today. Sorry, Marty. I could pull up the email. But he wrote a long email. There are a lot of trade-offs. There's a lot of costs to doing things differently than how we're doing them. And so it's just something that would need to be considered, not just to get more trees, but as a whole. How does it work? What does it mean for all the utilities? And we have more utilities than most towns do.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question about, we had several developers that have offered conditions saying that they would contribute to a tree fund. Would this be a fund that they could contribute to?
I think that would probably be a legal question. I know that Chris was looking into some of that back last summer, but I don't think we ever came to a resolution on what we are allowed to do.
I'm going to have to say we'll look into that and see. I do know, I think there's been a couple of subdivisions that have been, or rezonings that have been approved with that condition. Whether those funds could be used to finance this program. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Council.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank staff and DRECAP and everyone who put their time and energy into creating this program. I think this this went far beyond what I was hoping for and what I was expecting. I think this is fantastic. To my colleague's point, I mean, the reality is, 99% plus of the land in Apex is on private property. So if we're interested in replanting trees and we want more trees to be here, it's going to be predominantly on private property. We can do what we can. I don't think this precludes us from doing stuff on public property that can be a separate program. But I think something like this is necessary. And, I mean, honestly, it goes beyond what I was hoping for. I had something in mind like Cary, where they were giving away trees, and like, we can do that, that's great. But this program is fantastic. I guess I had one question. I think I know the answer. But it comes down to the reimbursement process. If someone has to hire a contractor, pay the contractor, and then submit the receipt to be reimbursed, is there any way, have we looked at a way for us to directly compensate the contractor so it's easier for people who may not have $750 to float for whatever weeks it takes there?
That sounds like maybe a finance question, I'm sorry.
Is that legally feasible, or is it just we have to reimbursement versus?
From a financial standpoint, we set it up, I'll give a glory about what we handle legally. But I mean, I think if the invoice is submitted and proof that it's been done, we may be able to look into that, what
Okay.
the process may look like. But I want to check with Lori.
Fair enough. I would just ask that you look into it and see if we can integrate that, because it might be easier for some people. Then it's really no overhead. You just make it part of the program. And another question kind of comes back to the cost savings. Could there be any efficiencies here? Is there a way for us to get a contractor and get them on board with doing 100 trees around town and get some discount rate or something on the labor? And also get more bang for the buck in terms of planting tree properties. And then we'd be giving out or granting like slots for this contractor that we've done. Something like that.
Oh, so, sorry.
Sorry.
I'll come up and comment to that. So, Mr. Happy, to that point, I think that's something that definitely could be done. And to follow up on your previous point, that would actually be a lot easier, I think, for the town to directly reimburse if we had, it would basically be our program, and then we would align, hey, we have these slots and someone applies. I think that's a possibility, and I think it comes when we find out how popular this program is going to be. And I think that's the biggest thing for us is we're getting something off the ground and we get it started. And once we see what the interest is, then we can kind of evaluate what the real process is. If 5 people come out, hopefully it's more than that. But if 5 come out, the way we have it set up is probably the easiest way to do. If we do get 100 people coming out, then we may be able to find efficiency, and we hire a contractor and set up the day, coordinate the day. So it'll be a little more staff time on that. But I think in the end we could. Well, but if we offset that with a savings on the
It saves some money.
contractor,
Yeah.
And then it would, at that point, then we definitely could cut a check directly to that contractor.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, and I just bring it up because I think doing it that way might bring more people out. If the overhead here involves, they have to hire someone and pay the contractor, and they don't know when they're going to see their check, that might turn off a lot of people who don't have the money or have the money but don't want to float it for a month or two. So, thank you. I'd ask you guys look into that.
I was going to say, it might be good to get feedback from people who go through that grant process, just to see, if there's any other ways that we can streamline the process.
As always, we always want to do program evaluation for the process as well as the outcomes as much as we can.
Thank you.
In terms of letting people know about the program and getting people engaged, do you have any ideas as to how we can do outreach and what touch points we have? We can say, hey, you're doing this, you're interacting with a town here, it'd be great, you can get a free tree if you just fill out this application.
Well, obviously, we, do the website and social media through Stacy, but one of the things we did talk about, and actually I really like the idea of us hiring a contractor to cut out the cost for folks, because one of the ideas we had was to do door hangers in underserved areas. That we'd like to do that. And so, if we're able to set it up so there's not any upfront cost, that would be it would be more likely to be used by those folks too.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I hope all the money goes out the door and we get trees around town. I hope, or what I don't want to see happen is us to create this great program and then just have no one know about it or no one want to engage because, the financial hurdle. So, to wrap it up, thanks again for all your work. I think this is fantastic, and I'm excited to see what happens till the next year.
Agreed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, I really like it too, and I think efforts to make it more accessible really excite me too. So that was the thing I was thought about, like if legally, we could do things to make it easier for people, then I think we'll have more people, been able to take advantage of this. Yeah, and I mean, I just love the utility flyer. I know I talk about that a lot, but I just, I think those are cheaper ways to let people know as well. But I do like things about like when you're there to do something else, remember this is an opportunity. We don't want people, and there could be people who think, oh, I would like to have a tree planting a tree, but they might think that they don't qualify, by the name of it, tree planting grant program. So people may think there's something they don't qualify or something. So I don't know if the name may be something that people might, oh, maybe this is for a certain community or a certain person, I make this income. So I want to make sure people know who it's for. So, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. All right. If there are no questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Y'all did him wrong. That's not
I'll
right.
rescind my motion. I can feel the heat.
Oh, too late.
We saw the promissory
Same team,
on
Terry, same team.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, passed unanimously. All right. Moving now to new business 3. And there's a motion to approve an ordinance amendment changing park hours to close at 8 p.m. year-round. Mr. Craig Sesser. And I'll start out by saying I pulled this for a reason. And first of all, I just want to thank you for all the work you've done with this. I know there was some research with community members to ensure that we were doing what is right with regard to lighting at Claremont Park. But my concern was I received information from other community members who would like to extend their activity time at parks. And for summertime, just 8 o'clock seems to be a little early because the light is still light and everything. So, people get off work at 6, 6:30, maybe they get to the park around 7, they have like 1 hour left to play. So I just kind of want to explore to see if there's a way we can look at extending, the time till 9 perhaps. And that was my reason for pulling it. So if you want to talk about what led us here, that would be great.
I can go through the whole spiel. Do you want it that long?
I do want my colleagues to do it because there could be some things that come out that, could change. So I just want
So I'll give you a full presentation there.
Okay.
So,
whatever you want to
thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'll give you a lot of highlights about how we got here. So PRCR staff, we prepared lighting plans for basketball courts in response to a resident request for Claremont and other unlit courts and parks in 2020. So the TRC committee approved the plans for Claremont, and as a result, the lights were installed. After installation, we received comments from residents who were impacted by the installed lights, and they have since been turned off. PRCR staff met with the Electric Utilities Department to evaluate the lighting levels and options for reducing the fixtures. The current fixtures meet all rules and regulations as it relates to spillover to adjacent properties. The court currently has 4 poles, 6 fixtures. After meeting with Electric, Parks and Rec deemed that 2 poles, 4 fixtures on the sides of the basketball court would be safe for basketball play during the evening hours of park operations. At the April 28th Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission meeting, PRCR staff recommended changing Claremont Park hours of operation, closing time from 6 p.m. November to February, and 8 p.m. March to October, to 8 p.m. all year. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission unanimously recommended the change. So, to give you a little input about how we received input from the community, we mailed out 70 notices to property owners as well as to tenants living in rental properties within 400 feet of the park boundary. The notifications provided staff's proposed recommendation to use 2 of the 4 poles at the basketball court to increase winter park hours 2 additional hours to 8 p.m. The notification invited attendance at the meeting or for those interested to submit an email that would be read into the recording at the meeting. No one from the community attended the meeting. We did receive 2 emails that were read into the record. So I'll share those emails with you now. The first was from Miriam Becker, 106 Wattle Court. Thank you for recent mailing regarding the lights at the basketball court here. It's evident you are taking care to meet the needs of the community. Thank you. That park gets a lot of use. My daughter and I also noticed that some water-loving plants have been installed near the soggy areas, the soggy creek bed. Excellent. The letter asks for any other input. We parents have often commented that it would be helpful to have a few benches to sit in near the playground. Maybe an Eagle Scout could be put on that project. Thanks again, Miriam Becker. So, concerning the park benches, we do have park benches on order. We actually do have somebody who may talk with the mayor the other day who may be interested in actually putting a bench out there as a memorial. So we are addressing that request currently. This one's a little longer, so bear with me. So this is from Sasha Gomez, and she is the resident that lives directly across from the park. Hi, Miss Ranky. My husband and I are unable to attend this evening's Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission meeting, so I'm providing input in writing. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. I'd like to start by expressing my appreciation for the response to our concerns when we initially contacted John Brown and thought and consideration reflected in the proposed plan to address the feedback Claremont residents have offered. The respect, professionalism, and value of residents reflects the apex that I know and love. Thank you for hearing residents' concerns and needs and working to incorporate them into the implementation plan. Our home is situated facing the basketball court at Claremont Park, which makes it perhaps the property most impacted by the new lights. We have a 6x4-foot picture window in our main living space that directly faces the court and the new lights as well as half-light double doors. When the lights were first illuminated, the spillover was extremely intrusive. I'm hopeful that the proposed plan will reduce or eliminate the impact on our home life. We're broadly supportive of the proposed plan outlined in your letter, but I have a few clarifying questions, feedback that I wish to offer. So I'm going to offer you the questions that she asked and the responses that we gave. So during the summer when dusk is after 8 p.m., will the lights stay off entirely or are they illuminated regardless of sunset time of year? The proposal to change, this is our response, the proposal to change the hours of the park would tie to the lights being shut off at the closing time and remaining off until the next evening. The only time this would be different is when the lights must cycle through a 24-on period when we set the new hours and if there was an outage that would cause a reset. Her next question. I support extending park hours, but wonder about the likelihood of later evening court use during coldest winter months, December to mid-February. Is it possible to have a variable schedule, for instance, 7 p.m. for those winter months and 8 p.m. for the 9 months of the year? I understand that this may present a logistical challenge and a consistent schedule through the year may be preferable. So this is our response. The current park hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., March through October. 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., November through February. The request is to update the hours to 8 p.m. all year. This is to provide 2 additional hours of play on the courts during the colder months. Lighting the courts to allow later hours of play was requested by residents as they could not always get to the courts before 6 p.m. Based on 8 p.m. being a standard closing time for our smaller parks already, we started with that as the option. If the courts are not used, the light levels are of concern, or some other aspect comes up, we could look at possibly adjusting that time. Next question. We appreciate the plan auto shut-off at 8 p.m. It will encourage people to adhere to the park hours. We often have people playing late into the evening, which sometimes wakes our young son. As mentioned about the hours of lights, this is our response. As mentioned about the hours of lights, match the hours the park is open. Play should not be after those hours, and should that occur, a call to the police, even just the non-emergency number, to advise them that someone's using the park outside of park operations would be appropriate. Next question. What are the next steps if we still experience significant light spillover in our main living space? I feel very hopeful that the proposed plan has accounted for that issue, but given how intrusive the light was initially and certain features and location of our home in relation to the court, it still gives me pause. I just want to understand if we have recourse or who to contact. Our response: we'll be correcting a statement in the letter sent tonight. The letter read that we are shutting off the side lights and utilizing the light behind the backboards. This is actually reversed. The pole closest to you will no longer be used, so the distance for the lights to your home is greater. We'd have to evaluate the light level, spillover, etc. if you still have an issue with the lighting. The light levels by calculation achieve or stay under that which is allowed, but we recognize that is a change. We would need to see what other options are available to reduce the lighting levels. And then her last paragraph. We love living across from Claremont Park and value all of the ways it builds community. It's always been one of the things I love most about our neighborhood and our home. Every kid in this neighborhood has learned to ride a bike on the court. Local coaches lead basketball classes and sessions. Guys show up from a pickup game after work. It's the meeting spot for neighborhood kids. There's often a game going while a yoga class is in session in the adjacent lawn. COVID only clarified more the special value that shared recreation spaces bring to our community. We are invested in this community and are grateful to be able to raise issues and offer feedback to the rollout of this facilities improvement project. Thanks for hearing us, for supporting residents, and for reflecting that in the proposed plan. Warm regards, Sasha Gomez. That was a lot. So.
Well done.
I have a question that maybe for Diane, possibly too. The light levels in the spillover, do we have the same requirements in the public parks that we do? Like, we had this issue with those tennis courts a few years ago. Is it? And there was like certain lumens past the property line. Is that the same? Do the same requirements apply to the public ones as well?
I don't know. I don't have that section memorized. I do know that the foot candles can be much higher for the sports courts. I can look it up.
Okay.
So I had a couple of things, and I just sort of hearing. What I did hear is that people appreciate and understand the purpose of having a gathering space, and they appreciated your department and your correspondence. I did hear that it's important to have things like benches. For me, I think shade tree, water fountains. So we've had a discussion before, right? That's why they're in the nature park. Okay. A couple of things I noted too were that there's a focus on basketball, and when I look at that and I think about whether we have other sports courts, we have other fields that have balls or people keeping noise. So I want to ensure that we're thinking about this in a broader way about noise from sports, and that it's recreation. And so then, and I think about, in the time of the pandemic was important, how we extended the hours for people to be able to be outside. And I think that was important for exercise, for recreation, for mental health, and community. And I think about, we keep saying that people get off work at 6. Well, many people do. But if you go to Target or you go to TJ Maxx, they do not close at 6. And people work there. And so the ones that can't afford to live here and want to live here, and they're not going to be able to ever engage in any of the stuff, right? No more, weekend or weekday, because we're out there buying and food and things. So we have to think about that too. And so, and I don't think our police officers want to be involved in talking to citizens who are engaging in recreation. I'm not, so I don't see how that's a public safety or public health issue. So for me, I would like to take all of that and figure out how can we control the spillover and things like that, and can continue to have this as a great amenity and build a sense of community without now people engaging law enforcement, because this is not a public safety or a health risk. It actually is the opposite. So that's sort of the things that I'm hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else?
Maybe we can talk about planting more trees to prevent, to give some more shielding in that area, if that's a possibility. I don't know. But I would agree with, the idea that not everybody works a 9-to-5 job. And I think that having extended hours to be able to take advantage of our recreational spots and, letting out energy in a very productive way, providing socialization for people, I think that's what these should be used for. So extending the hours, to me, beyond 8 o'clock, to me, is a good idea. So.
And was her concern more about light than noise? And was I hearing concern about noise for the children too, or was it more light?
She mentions the games going on and waking her child up at some point, but it seemed to me the majority of her concerns were the light.
And you're
lighting.
proposing now 2 poles instead of the 4 that will have the light, right?
So the 2 poles that we're talking about removing are on the ends, and one's closest to her home, and the ones that would stay have 4 fixtures, so it's more than enough light for basketball play to be safe. So we are proposing to take the 2 poles out of the mix on the ends, so it would help out with the light spillover at least.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking through our code right now, and I see the way we have it organized is, take all our parks, we split them up in a bunch of different sections. Each park has a different set of hours. Broadly speaking, how were these hours determined? I imagine we evaluated something like how close they were to residential, the lighting technology.
So the neighborhood parks, and this has been consistent, and since I've been here, we've always shut down the neighborhood parks at 8 p.m. Part of the reason that we've shut down over the summertime, and part of the reason that we do that and or 6 in the winter is because the lighting in those parks isn't as sufficient as it is in our larger parks. So the lighting in general terms is mainly on the street side, not within the park like our larger parks are. So that's pretty much the premise as to why we restricted the hours like we did there, as well as just the location of the parks being right beside the homes and the residences. So that's why they've been restricted over time.
Do you reevaluate routinely?
We have not reevaluated since 2014 is the last time we looked at our hour changes.
Okay. So if I just summarize what I'm hearing from the council and from the mayor, I mean, we have before us an ordinance which extends the winter hours by 2 hours in one specific park. The mayor expressed a desire to go further. I think a couple of council members concurred. And I would say, I think the thing for us to do, Mr. Mayor, is, we can go ahead and approve these extra 2 hours. But if we ask our staff to go back and just do that end-to-end evaluation for all the park hours, with take it to the advisory council and everything and see, given all that may have changed since 2014, if there's any other parks we want to extend further in the summer or winter, and just kind of go through that process and see what else you can find. Because some parks that may not have been lit well in 2014 are able to be lit today. And also, the LED lights that we're putting up now, I understand, are a lot more directional. We're able to provide a better lighting experience without impacting the neighbors, whereas some of these neighborhood parks, in the past, it just wasn't possible. You have the lights that throw light everywhere. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is we can maybe light some of these neighborhood parks without impacting the neighbors to the degree that a decade ago wouldn't have been possible or financially feasible. So, Mr. Mayor, that's how I'd suggest we proceed, is let's take a vote on this, and then we could ask our staff to, over the next couple months, evaluate, the ordinance from end to end and see if there's any other parks which we could potentially extend, because I'm supportive of the idea of getting as much use as possible out of our amenities.
Yeah.
That'd be my suggestion.
Yeah. Did you have something there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Depending on what this says, I think I'd like to add the lighting, because we spent a lot of time on that tennis court thing, and I think it's a very similar issue, too. It sounds like it.
Okay, so the section of the ordinance that deals with sports and athletic field lighting, it does have a different standard than the typical spillover. However, it's different for rights-of-way and for non-residential properties. It actually doesn't list a maximum foot candle spillover in that section.
For the
It does still.
right-of-way and the non-residential.
Non-residential. The spillover levels at the property line must not exceed 0.3-foot candles onto residential properties, which is the same as the standard spillover.
Okay.
So it's equally protecting residential, but it does not equally protect non-residential and rights-of-way, which makes sense. The rights-of-way are usually lit up pretty well, and obviously not non-residential's lit up.
Do we have the full cutoff requirement for the
Yes.
private recreational and not for public?
Let's see. So what it says is that for the public one, the fixtures must be fitted with the manufacturer's glare control package. If the manufacturer does not have a glare control package, the fixture specification must be changed to one that does offer the glare control package. But yeah, it does not seem to have the full cutoff in that section. But that is a standard requirement. And I believe all the ones they're putting in now are all full cutoff, because that's what people carry. It's just the industry standard at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good points. I really appreciate everyone's comments, and, you know, and I'm comfortable with your recommendation, Councilman. I think that's what I'm satisfied with, so we can proceed that way.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I think we can expect a substantial increase, maybe linear, maybe exponential, the later we go, like to not, you know, for 8 to 9 there'll be much more pushback than going from 6 to 8, I think. I think more activity, so there'll be people that would like it, but also a lot more pushback. So I think there's a balance there, obviously.
Yeah. And I would answer that I think it's appropriate for the staff and for our advisory commission to take that on and to maybe have a public meeting about it and get people in there to talk about, once they have a set of proposed changes, people can come in and express their feelings on that if they're upset about 9 p.m. versus 8 p.m. and just go through the process and see what happens. So you're not wrong, but I think we can handle it.
Okay. So is that your motion, yes, sir?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd move we adopt the ordinance as presented and direct staff to evaluate park hours in the coming months further.
All right, thank you so much.
So this clarification for this, through 8 or through 9?
Through 8. I'd say tonight, let's adopt it as presented, and then let's ask staff to evaluate all the park hours end to end in section 15.6. You know, there's 6 sections here currently. This adds a 6th section. We can look at what it makes sense to extend, just like we did in, I guess, 2014 you mentioned.
Is your motion talking about just neighborhood parks or all the parks?
All the parks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all about getting feedback, so I'm good with that. I just had to bring up the concern about, and I think that's what you were saying about basketball. I'm a baller too, but I don't play as much.
Did you say you're a baller?
I'm a baller too. But you know, it's.
We know who this is really for.
we know where this is going.
No.
Yeah, me too.
But no, it just makes sense. I'm really interested in the summer, really, just getting 1 extra hour, because again, at 6 o'clock, 6:37, you know, the sun is kind of cooler, so you get out there and it's, you know, it's more comfortable to play. So that's really what my concern was. So we can revisit, and I'm good with that.
Okay.
So, all right, so we got a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, Interim Director.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We got town manager update. Mr. Ralph Clark.
I know. Made up for last time.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have a whole lot tonight. We did receive an update from NCDOT on the resurfacing work for this summer in the Apex area, and I'll give you the overall streets, and it's just portions of them, but it's Davis Drive, North Salem Street, Chapel Ridge Road, and Clark Farm Road. Now, they do have where you can get more specific, and we'll probably get that on our webpage somehow to get it out to the public to know exactly where we're talking about. The next thing I have is a Highline building downtown, and I don't know how I had that last month, and we've had some discussion. That building is getting ready to get started, and the construction on it's going to take about a year. And one of the primary things that we try to bring out was the fact it's going to be a sidewalk closure there during that period, or most of that period. But we have, our staffing level has met with the developer, and we're making provisions where there's safe way to get around this project. So I want to be sure that everyone's aware that, it is getting ready to get started. And it's apparently a pretty critical piece of downtown. I've heard a little bit about it since I've been here, so it's a big piece that you've worked on. The next thing I have is, over the last 30 days or so, I've been privy to getting emails about our trains. And some of them's dealing with that noise, the idling of the engines at night, the blowing of the horns at night, and then we have one about the pollution. Well, pollution, I think, becomes an air quality issue, and I don't know if we have to do much with that. But Chief Godwin and I both have agreed that maybe he and I should just take a visit to the railroad, to their people, and just have some discussion about some of these things we're hearing, and see if we can get some resolution. I guess, kind of having to remember that the railroads were here first, and, but I think they try to be good neighbors everywhere they can. So we want to see if we can make that continue to be.
You may want to make sure you get the history, because this I've lived there 4 years, and I feel like it's gone the entire time. We've heard about it over and over again. I'm sure you guys talk about long years. So there's a history of exactly the thing we're talking about.
Positive. He's trying to be
maybe
aspiration.
Maybe say, look at what we've done, and now we're people. New ideas, maybe. I don't know.
So I live like right on the road, and luckily I'm in a quiet zone, but it is not always quiet.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Is most of the time, 99% of the time, there is no issue whatsoever. That 1% of the time, there are trains that come through there blowing their horn 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And it of course it wakes you up.
Yeah.
So most of the time they're respectful, they follow the quiet zone, but there are times when they don't, and
well, maybe we just need to remind them that they are there, and they can remind their people, and probably just some conversation hopefully will resolve this. If not, then we'll see if we can find another step.
I appreciate that.
All right, I got one more thing.
Any
All right.
long-term residents need to consult before he goes. Just saying, Mayor.
I have some days scheduled off, and I don't want you then to think that I'm abandoning you because you've gotten, far along in your process. But I do have some days that I have scheduled to be off over the next few weeks, and I just want you to be aware if I'm not here. I think I told you I shoot sporting clays as a competitor, and I'm in my latter years of shooting, and I just hate to miss them. And there are a couple of tournaments over the next 6 weeks that I plan to participate in, and and they usually they're 4-day events, so it'll take some days from work. Also.
Priorities, I know.
And also, I have a granddaughter that's in dental school, and she's just starting her clinicals, and I've agreed to be her, whatever you call her, test patient to be for completion. And she's up at West Virginia University, so I've scheduled some time to go up and do some work with her.
You could have talked to him before, huh?
Yeah. But anyway, I just want you to know that I'm here with you, whatever it takes. I'm not telling you this to say you need to rush your decision. You don't need to do that.
You're nudging us.
I am not into that. I am here. I agreed to serve with you, and I plan to be here until I run out of hours, and I'm okay there. So, but anyway, thank you for letting me be here. And sometimes it's a drag, and look at this clock tonight. It's a little funny because usually it's 11 o'clock when I'm standing up here, and those days it worked on me. But anyway, I hope I'm doing what you want me to do, and trying to keep things moving along. I continue to tell you that you have a very competent staff here. So even if I'm not here, I can assure you your questions will get answered, your problems will get taken care of, and I just look at things that get done, and I'm amazed. So,
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
all right. That's all I have, sir.
All right, good job.
All right,
Yes,
thank
excellent.
you.
Good luck on the sporting class.
Yes.
All right. Before we move to closed session, we had a gentleman that walk in, Mr. Ahmad Fike. He was, with your wonderful, Think Apex, one of the nominees for nonprofit category for Murrow's FC. So if you would just step up and, yeah, we just.
How you guys doing? So I wasn't prepared.
No, that's okay. We just wanted to recognize you and.
Thank you.
And of course, the Mayor Pro Tem, this is her initiative, so
Nice
we
to
just want
meet
to
you.
acknowledge you and thank you for everything you're
My
doing with the
pleasure.
program. And
My pleasure.
and we want to give you a round of applause as well for being a nominee.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. All right, we move into closed session 1 and 3. And possible motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318A5 to give staff direction concerning the town's negotiating position to acquire real property. And then closed session 3, possible motion to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved, second. Discussion. All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And just for the record, we will not come back in here. We will actually gavel out in the closed session. So no further business. All right. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Did you get your certificate? Okay, so they're already gone. So you got emails from